Welcome everyone who is joining us. We're just going to wait a few minutes for attendees to come on, but if you've now entered the room, you will see a poll. So if you can just pick your response, that would be amazing. I can see the numbers creeping up. Eventually we'll get a little result, I believe. So I'm having a little look at the results. I believe we've got a little bit of a split between our attendees this evening. A lot of junior level people split with, but the majority of attendees are at a senior level in tech. So thanks. I think we'll just wait a couple more minutes maybe, and then I will kind of kick start the panel discussion. So welcome to our 12th webinar in a series of Global Women in DevOps live panel discussions. We will be touching on challenges our leaders have experienced throughout their careers while celebrating achievements as we choose to challenge in line with the International Women's Day theme this year. You can expect a 45-minute panel discussion with a live Q&A throughout and half an hour of networking for those that wish to continue the conversation further at the end. My name is Francesca and I'm the co-founder of Women in DevOps here in the UK, and I'm driven to help drive change for equality in technology, addressing gender to empower people and ensure everyone's voices are heard. I will be the host and chair for the webinar this evening, well, here in the UK. I know that we have a few panelists that are across the globe. But before I kickstart our panel discussion, this webinar is in aid of SmartWorks. So I'm going to let Jan tell you a little bit more about what they do, and a huge thank you to everyone who has donated. So far, I believe we have raised £360. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you, Francesca, and good evening, everybody. And good morning to those who are in the US. It's fantastic that you've supported us, and £360 is a big amount of money for SmartWorks. Just very briefly, I'm the chair of SmartWorks Greater Manchester, one of 8 centres that are dotted around the UK, and our charity has a very singular purpose, and that is to support women on their journey back into employment. So we support unemployed, disadvantaged, often vulnerable women ahead of either developing their CV and gaining skills and confidence to apply for a job interview, or indeed just before they have a job interview. They are referred to us from job centres, women's refuges, drug dependency units, housing associations, Her Majesty's Prison. They're referred to us for an intervention where they work with our stylists, and they are dressed in a fantastic interview outfit, very high quality, fabulous clothing that's theirs to keep and for free. And after their confidence is at a high, thinking that they look the part and perhaps they do have a chance of getting the job, they then go for some one-to-one interview coaching with professional HR people or recruiters or senior business managers to enable them to translate their lived experiences into core competencies so that they get the job. And in a normal year, pandemic slightly changed our statistics, as you might imagine, but in a normal year, we will see just in our centre in Manchester, 450 women, and in the last full year, the job success rate was over 80%. So it's highly effective proposition. It's super confidence building, and everybody has a huge sense of purpose from participating in it. And we're delighted that Women in DevOps are one of our sponsors. Thank you so much for donating.
Thanks so much, Jan. It's such an amazing cause. And now I'm going to also introduce Ari from JFrog, our platinum sponsor, who is doing a prize giveaway. So don't forget to enter, because I hear it's a good one.
Oh, we got a few things to talk about first, right? You got to build up to it. Hi, everybody. I'm Ari Waller, and I'm the Meetup Event Manager for JFrog. And we are so excited again to be partnering with Women in DevOps for just another year. I'll share just a little bit about who we are. JFrog is the DevOps software company founded in 2008. Many people in the DevOps community know us best for our flagship product, Artifactory, which is considered by many to be the gold standard for managing your artifacts and dependencies. But here's something that a lot of people don't know yet. JFrog has a free cloud version of our software available for you to use for your projects, especially for the meetup community. And if you're working with Docker, as I know many of you are, JFrog's free tier on the cloud is capable of functioning as a pull-through cache for Docker Hub. And here's the best part. Since JFrog has partnered with Docker, you may have seen it in the news, you'll also be exempt from their rate limits on pulls for free and anonymous accounts. So that can be pretty valuable, and I hope that's something that you'll be able to enjoy. Also, our annual DevOps Global Conference, SwampUp 2021, is coming to EMEA, June 1st through 3rd, and the Americas on May 25th through 27th. I'm going to share a couple of slides with you quickly here. I'm going to attempt to. Let's see here. There we go. Hopefully they can be seen. But here on the slide are just some of the amazing speakers you'll be hearing from this year, and obviously representing some pretty amazing companies, but there's still more announcements to come, especially our keynote that I think will be very impressive to all, coming in the next month or two. But what you can do is, if you want to, we want really honestly all of you to be there, and we want you to be there for free. So if you scan the QR code, and I'll drop the link in the chat shortly too, you're going to be able to go to a link which will take you to a free conference day. And there's also a pass for our free premium technical deep dive tutorial day as well, which is typically not free, but will be free for everyone here at Women in DevOps this month. So just, I'll drop some instructions in the chat shortly. Now, the prize. We're really excited about this prize. Another bonus for tonight is our raffle just for attendees tonight. JFrog is going to give you a chance to win an Oculus Quest 2 or one of 10 JFrog t-shirts. I'm wearing one of the older JFrog vintage t-shirts today. Matches my background. But we love our t-shirts at JFrog. To me, they're as valuable as the Oculus, but I'll tell you, if you haven't tried the Oculus Quest 2, it really is a game changer. And I think you're really, really going to enjoy it, especially if you win it. So in order to enter that, you can use the QR code or the bit.ly that you see. And I will drop yet but one last link in the chat in just a few moments. And again, we're just really excited. Now, the winner is going to be selected within 2 business days, and we will contact them by email, and we will share the winner with the community through social media congratulations, as well as Women in DevOps. Excuse me. But again, thank you so much for allowing us into your community for yet another year. And I'm going to turn it right back over to you, Francesca.
Thanks so much, Ari. So Women in DevOps is a not-for-profit initiative devoted to empowering people in the DevOps industry and improving the gender imbalance, striving to promote equality in technology. Our unique platform is used to not only amplify the voices of women, but women of all minority groups. We are also super excited to be collaborating with Coding Black Females. We want to make this discussion as engaging as possible. So if you have any questions for our panel throughout the webinar, feel free to ask them in the sidebar or in the Q&A section at the end. And we will try to get through as many questions as possible. If we don't have time for all your questions, we will be adding this onto our white paper document, which if you follow all of our socials, you'll see we will be posted on there. Lastly, before we kick things off, please note that this is being recorded and will be uploaded to our Women in DevOps YouTube channel, where you can also access previous webinars too. We now want to run our second poll before we launch the panel discussion, and I introduce everybody. Hopefully you'll see that on your screen. Yeah. This panel is looking at how satisfied you are with the amount of career growth available at your current job. I'm hoping the answers are going to come up on the screen anytime soon. This one is really split. So I would say, well, the highest percentage on this is unsatisfied, which is 20% of the panel. But we do have 23% are saying satisfied and very satisfied. So it's quite an even split about how everyone's feeling that's on this webinar. So thank you for answering that for us all here. I'd like to introduce now our fabulous panel from around the world. We'd love to know more about our audience too. So if you could just drop in the chat box on the side where in the world everybody's located to, that we always find that super interesting. But now over to our panel. If you could introduce yourself, your role, your experience, and a positive highlight from the last year in lockdown, because can't quite honestly believe that it's been a year since we started hosting these webinars. So Janani, do you want to go first?
Sure. Good morning, good evening, everyone. I'm Janani Vasildevan. I'm an engineering manager in Microsoft. So I lead a team of engineers, and we work with customers. Like the work that we do is we go work with a code with the customer on a solution. And it's something that's really interesting and exciting for me, because we not just develop solutions for them, but we actually focus on coding along with customers. And the challenges amount all the way from like developing, helping them with their infrastructure, DevOps, helping them with API deployment, all sorts of things. I'm really excited to be here. And in terms of a positive highlight, I think that I have my parents also, living with me for the last year, and we kind of have these game time, like at the end of every day, where we kind of take a pack of cards and play a couple of games with the family. So it's been really nice to kind of have that time to kind of spend with my family, kind of saving up on the time that we use for commute or other things. So that's really been my positive highlight.
Thanks, Janani. Catherine? Catherine, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine. I work at a tech company called QA, and they provide several training courses, training opportunities for school leavers, people, things like apprenticeships, and different various courses in tech. They also have their own QA Academy, which offers opportunities for people to learn things like learn about things like DevOps, software engineering, coding in different languages, and things like that. So I work in digital marketing there at QA, and I would say a highlight the past year for me would be developing my understanding of Xcode. So I'm trying to learn how to basically code on Xcode using Swift. And yeah, that's something I'm proud of.
Thank you. Lorelei?
Thank you, Francesca. All right, my name is Lorelei Catapan. I'm Senior Director of Product at JFrog. So my focus is, or my team's focus is around the ecosystems integrations, partnerships with ISVs and clouds providers, and listening to our customers where they really need these deep integrations with other vendors and ISVs out there within the DevOps ecosystem. As Ari had mentioned, our flagship product is Artifactory, but the binary repository manager. And there are other products within the portfolio, such as security, which is X-Ray and so forth. And it's really about ensuring that we provide best of breed end-to-end solution for DevOps to our customers. As just about me, I've been living and breathing DevOps for the last at least decade. Very passionate in this space. And in terms of personal life in the last year, we have 4 boys, so it keeps us really busy. And at home, things that we do is, especially during the lockdown, we play board games, chess, or Munchkins, if you know that board game as well. We've actually also gone to Tahoe to try to get some, downtime and actually also try to go snowboarding or skiing. My boys love to snowboard, and naturally so do I. And now that the baseball season's coming, we're in full force with that as well. So very excited to be in this panel.
Thank you. Tam?
Hi, I'm Tamara Miner, and I'm an engineering manager at Improbable, which I'm on the team that's called Partner Engineering. So somewhat similar to Janani's team, we help out our customers by integrating our services and helping them write their code. But we also help our feature teams in making sure that we have a tight feedback loop with our customers. So we work in a space that's mostly video games, at least that's the side that I work on. We also have a side that works on defense and simulations for real life type of modeling, data modeling. And for our products, it's a lot of highly scalable distributed systems, networking, online services, ecosystems within games, and a lot of interesting stuff there. As far as DevOps goes, I think it's kind of a new space for a lot of game studios. So a lot of the things that my team helps other game studios work on is how to transition from, being in that box product type of world to more of games as a service mode. So there's a lot of really interesting live ops and platform type problems. We're working on, things like Kubernetes and Docker and other stuff that people have mentioned. As far as what a positive thing has happened during the pandemic, is turning a negative into a positive. Because of COVID, my last job, I ended up becoming redundant, but because of that, I ended up getting this job, which I'm really excited about. And also, I'm an American living in London, and because my previous job had been sponsoring my visa, this experience gave me the kick to actually search out for a visa that I wouldn't need sponsorship for. So now I kind of don't have that stress and anxiety that I had before around, if something happens, then, do I have to move back or something? So I think that was very positive and a lot of hard work last summer. So, and it's good to be here.
This is your second panel now, right, Tam? So you're a pro at it.
I don't know about that. For some reason, I'm very nervous today.
And finally, Kerry, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Yep. Hello, so I'm Kerry Webb, and I'm the head of Group Technology Finance at Legal & General. I've worked at LNG all of my adult life, which I think is a good thing. Love it there. In terms of our team, so Group Technology is, some of our portfolio is more traditional IT, but we actually have a really well-established inbuilt internal development team, so very digitally focused and really focusing on our customers and our colleagues in that space, which I love. I always say that I'm not very technical, so I can kind of hack together something in VBA, not grate me. And really my role is to kind of take what we're doing and put it into a story that's accessible in terms of relating to where we're spending money and the value that's coming back in for it. So yeah, I really enjoy it and I'm really happy to be here. In terms of the last year, so positive is I think really enjoying slowing down. I think, yeah, at first it wasn't a positive, but actually really enjoying that kind of day-to-day routine of not going 100 miles an hour, spending lots of time with our cats, which I love. Like, so yeah, it's good. It's really good.
Hopefully we'll have like a cat flash up on the screen at some point, just, you know, for an added bit of entertainment to the web.
They're locked out.
Oh, yeah. So we'll now go into the panel discussion. So we're going to look at some challenges that everyone has faced and throughout their career, and also look at the progress that we're already achieving and kind of what we want to see from the tech industry. So I'd love to hear what gender-specific challenges or stereotypes or barriers any of you have had to overcome during your career. I don't know who wants to go.
I guess I'll start on that. What I remember earlier in my career, what I've noticed is that the team would tend to say, "Oh, can you go ahead and moderate this meeting, or be the moderator, or you know, or taking the initiative of resolving whatever conflicts that may have risen in a particular meeting, and having that follow up and ensuring that we resolve whatever dependencies and conflicts that may have arisen, and just feeling like, okay, this is something that I need to do, right? I feel like, you know, as a woman, it's you have that instinct of trying to be the person that will help the team out and resolve any conflicts, whether that's personal conflicts or professional or whatever it is that, you know, or that arises in the discussion.
I can follow up on that, or I completely agree. All of those things have happened to me as well. The other one is several times in my career, different companies, people have asked me, "Are you even technical?" Which just really grates on me, or they'll assume that I'm like in a non-technical job just because I'm a woman, which has been very frustrating, I think, and it has usually meant that I kind of have to prove myself. I'm happy to say that, you know, as time has gone on, I feel like that's happening less. So I'm not sure how much that is because I've moved countries or what, but or maybe, you know, as I'm getting older and people are seeing, you know, my CV speaks for itself a bit more than it did early on in my career. But it's definitely been a challenge because it does occasionally come up, and it has made me, because my degree is not in computer science, my degree is in information technology, and so sometimes we're like, well, you're not an engineer or something like this. And previously I was a project manager, and that sort of bias has just, yeah, it's been a struggle to overcome, but I think it's possible.
How are you, Tam, challenging like the inequality and calling out that bias? I know you've mentioned that maybe your CV's improved, but is that really the case? Is it more that you're now more confident to challenge people?
Yes. I think it's both. It's a bit of both. You know, I mean, now my title's engineering manager, which inherently implies that I'm more technical than project manager. Even when the word technical was in my title, it didn't necessarily mean anything, but I am also more confident in it, where the first time someone asked me that, my response, I mean, to be honest, wasn't very good, but it was probably 10 years ago or so, or yeah, maybe longer. But it did happen more recently in the last 2 years. And my response then was to actually like take that person aside and have a very frank conversation about, you know, hey, what made you say this? And then having a conversation about how it made me feel and why it definitely felt like it was a gendered statement when they said it. And, you know, it ended up being a very positive conversation. And I think I highly doubt that person will say it to anyone else ever again. But yeah, it was positive though, the outcome. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to add to what Tam mentioned. I think that, you know, we are now, like with the experience behind us, we are in a position that, you know, we can be allies for others in the room. So I think that's something that I'm kind of using right now. Like, you know, when you're in a room and you see some comments that might be kind of indicating, indicating this kind of a bias, really kind of calling that out and kind of saying, hey, you know, I think that's not what you meant, right? Because she's great. I mean, I've kind of seen her do that. I think that's really important, you know, to kind of give back or kind of stand up and be the ally in the room.
Yes, sometimes what I realized going through that is they sometimes don't even know, they don't realize what they're saying. They don't realize that they're actually, you know, saying something that might be derogatory. And then, so just like what Tam and Janani is saying, taking them aside, whoever it is, and letting them know that, hey, that wasn't really cool, that what you said. They'll typically will realize, oh, okay, sorry, didn't realize that was happening. Of course, there are others that they do say it intentionally, and that needs to also be called out, right? And I think it's just a matter of being confident about yourself and also being genuine about, you know, your opinions and your thoughts. And as long as you're genuine about it, I think, you know, you'll go a long way.
Like to just pick up on that I think for me the key bit is around that intention and impact. So somebody may not intend, and I think it, you know, covers so many things, whether it's gender or anything else. It really is that point of kind of saying you may not have intended that, but the impact that I felt is this. Can we have a conversation about it? For me, a lot of the times I see it's just that unintentional language that's picked up, unnecessarily gendered. You know, my biggest bugbear is we talk about sometimes in contracts that will come through as mandates, and I'm like, they're not mandates, it's just a day. Like, can we just get rid of that really defunct, it's not needed word? Yeah.
I think just to add as well that the conversation actually reminds me of something my friend told me. My friend was in a team of developers and they constantly got they were assumed to be an executive assistant, and whenever they'd say, actually no, I work in this team, I work in this department, and this is what I do, the response from the person who would tell her the same thing each day would be like, oh, well, I'm just surprised, you know, I just forget because I'm surprised. I don't really expect someone like you to be doing that kind of role. And it's like, there's no other reason that you would assume that, especially as she was the only woman on the team. So it could be quite easy to be discriminated against.
Thank you, everyone. So according to the stats during December 2020, women lost 156,000 jobs in the US, whereas men actually gained 16,000. That's according to the Tech Republic. What are the top 3 actions that can help shape a better culture where all women, including working mothers, women of colour, LGBTQ plus community, feel welcomed and have equal opportunities to advance?
If I can take that, I think it's really interesting because, you know, I was chatting about this with one of my colleagues who's a data scientist in my team, and she mentioned her husband works in this area, economics, and he knew this number, but even he wasn't aware of that being women. So, I mean, I think the first step is really acknowledging it and like kind of talking about it, sharing it, and like saying, being very explicit about it. But then I think the most important thing, like, that kind of came out, like, as we kind of discussed this statistic was, yeah, you're in a position where you can mentor folks. But then if you are that person who are actually going through some difficulty, I mean, in the last year, I've had this situations where I've had to take like weeks off because of childcare, or like we didn't really have her in school, and so all of that. So really asking for help, and that's something I think that I've myself discovered I'm kind of guilty when I do it. I mean, I have to go to my husband and say, hey, can you take off for a couple of days because I have this important work, a meeting at work. But then I've been kind of training myself to do it. So that's really my top thing. And I would love to kind of hear from the other panelists on the other two actions, maybe.
I absolutely agree about, asking for help. It doesn't show, it doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean, it's actually quite the opposite, that you're strong enough to say, I need help. And I need to get this done. So I need help. So I think it's actually very important to raise that. And then even raising it to your manager or your boss, asking for flexibility in the hours. At the end of the day, what they want is you being productive and getting your stuff done in time, right? And as long as that's possible, I think, asking for that help again, to your boss, to your team, whoever it is so key. So I totally agree with Janani on that one.
I'd also build on that by saying that there's an element of, so I don't have children, but I need to be really conscious around the impact that other people are feeling with child caring or even other caring responsibilities. And I think taking a step back from that, say in the broader context of the question, it really is that point of look beyond your own experience. So I'm a great believer that with the sum of our experiences, and they can be direct and they can be indirect. So listen to other people's stories, really try and connect with it, really try and understand it. If your team is all like you, A, you're going to have an echo chamber, and B, it's bloody boring and it's not good for the business. So yeah, that would be my point. Challenge yourself to listen to other people genuinely, and yeah, build out from there.
I would say for opportunities for advancement, I think a way that organizations can ensure their staff have the opportunities to advance would be like having things like appraisals, having discussions, maybe like even if there isn't an opportunity for a certain position to be advancing at that moment, at least just keeping them encouraged, letting them know what is being put in place to enable that to happen in the future. So I think one thing that is really good is just having good relationship with people in the company, and whether that be managers, executives, just making sure that everyone is aware of what the structure is like in the company, and just trying to really push for progression for everyone, I'd say.
Yeah, I add on to that. I think as a manager, it's really, or as a leader, even if you're a leader that doesn't have direct reports, it's very important to do that and, remind people on your team and peers as well that, it's okay to take breaks. It's okay to ask for help, because there is a stigma about those things to not do it. And I think especially during the pandemic, when you have Zoom call after Zoom call, there is no time for a break. And I fall prey to this all the time where I forget sometimes to eat lunch. And then I'm like, oh no, now I have to go to my next meeting and I didn't do this. And so I make sure to also read between the lines with my team and direct reports to see, do people have the support that they need? Are they aware of the support functions that the company provides? Like most companies have employee assistance programs with regard to mental health and that sort of stuff, or maybe they have yoga and that sort of stuff. A lot of tech companies are getting on that trend, but it can be really helpful to remind people that those resources exist. And the other thing is, which I find really nice about Improbable, is that even in our company-wide town halls where there's 800 people, the first thing that the CEO talks about, or a lot of other leaders talks about, is remember to support each other. because that is really the number one thing, and especially right now. And as you know, I think someone in the chat mentioned something about, you know, seeing men who are taking care of children as well. Like it needs to be normalized, and kind of pointing those things out in a positive way can be very good. But likewise, because of the stigmas around gender, if seeing a woman on a Zoom call with her kids is being seen as negative, we need to be allies there and you know, actually make sure that that is seen as okay as well. So
I can see there's some comments where everyone's agreeing and is mentioning childcare and the impact that has on families, and particularly it would be good to know how the pandemic has impacted the work-life balance when it comes to looking after children.
I feel like now we have two jobs, right? Especially if those with moms with kids who have had to, you know, the kids are now practically homeschooled. It's a completely different experience for even the kids to have to go through Zoom for schools, and you do need a parent that will guide your kids to be able to be still productive in school. And with the teachers not being there physically, the burden goes on a parent, and typically that tends to be the mom. And that's just the nature of it. Sometimes it's the dad. Actually, in my case, a lot of it, and I have to be very thankful to him, it's my husband. But I think just accepting this new reality is so key, because everyone else is going through it. Every other parent, every other family is going through it. And so I think having that acceptance, and then having the company with, you know, whoever you're working for, also accepting that, embracing that, and providing all of the resources that's required to help their employees get through this pandemic is also very helpful. I'm very fortunate to be in a company where you know, the leadership is that way. But I think, you know, finding yourself in a place where that is accepted, that is supported, and that you are supported, and through this pandemic is very helpful.
Is there any way, so, well, it has been reported that 72% of mothers have had to work fewer hours because of childcare issues. Is there anything that organisations should be doing to cater towards women with families?
I would suggest that to cater to any employees with families or with carrying responsibilities. Like I have, you know, some people who I work with who are caring for, you know, their elderly parent, or they have other circumstances that do require them to, you know, have a block of time in the day where, you know, they'll block it out and say, do not book carrying responsibilities. And so it's important to try to get people to respect that. And I've noticed that, you know, some people are really good about respecting that and some people aren't. And I think having an open conversation about, you know, hey, when you see this on people's calendars, you really need to respect that, because otherwise it's just going to get booked over. And I think that's important. Or also offering other alternatives, like, you know, maybe working 3 days a week instead of 5. There should be those options, I think.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, to add on to what Tam mentioned, I think that, so we in Microsoft, when we went into this a couple of months into it, we kind of talked about, or we actually have that benefit of like taking what we call the COVID paid vacation, or it's not vacation, I'm sorry, taking care of kids, not vacation, but, you know, paid time off that, you know, that you can kind of use for it. I think that was really, really useful, because when it just started, there were so many parents like struggling with how do you kind of get to, you know, virtual school your kid and all of that together along with work. So I think that's good. And then also the concept of well-being days, because I think a lot of folks, I think just being on this Zoom, like day in and day out kind of contribute so much to stress and cortisol and all of that. And so we've also had like well-being days called out and said, hey, do what you want to do. It can be snowboarding or skiing, whatever. So I definitely think that that helps. I mean, you can kind of do that locally from your team, but having that the organization show that support kind of just says how important it is for them.
Yeah, I think so for me, like at LNG, we've always had really good policies in place around kind of flexible working and a really good structure around supporting kind of mental health first aiders. But for me, it was kind of like there was all this stuff in place, but there wasn't really there were people using it, or that, you know, there were interactions in there, but it wasn't kind of as normalized as it feels like it has been in the last year. And I think even that kind of, you know, you're literally in somebody's home, you're there with them. And I really think that we need to challenge ourselves after all of this, that we don't lose that benefit of that kind of, we're all human, this is a big community, let's look after each other, not go back into the, well, you must be in the office, da, 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 da. Not that I think we would, but I think especially as leaders, like to Tam's point, it's just about kind of, just let's not lose all the good stuff that's happened. Sorry.
Thanks, Kerry. So I'd like to move on to like how companies are progressing and understanding what progress you maybe all have seen on gender equality in your companies or in tech as a whole.
I would say,
sorry, go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I would say the company that I work at the moment, I think they're quite diverse and very inclusive. I think especially because I work in digital marketing, the design team always make an effort to make sure that in terms of representation, what we have on our website, on social media, on advertising materials is always inclusive, and it's not just promoting the same sort of image. So like I mentioned at QA, we have a lot of DevOps courses, like Swift UI courses, like just different types of tech courses or tech roles that people might be interested in. And they make sure that when they're promoting things like webinars about tech events or the courses themselves, that the images used represents people from all walks of life, so that people are able to see themselves in those kind of roles. So I think just being the way we're being more progressive with representation is a way I'd say we're trying to encourage other people.
I agree with what Catherine said. That was, exactly what I was going to say. I think the kind of acknowledging it and, showing up more role models definitely helps. And starting to look at people for what they are, like, you're an engineer, you're a program manager, not a women engineer, not a women founder. I think that is something that's also been super helpful. When you look at work, talking about things in a team or talking together, that really helps people not feel like, okay, they're different. You are you're kind of regarded for what you do and not for what you are. So.
I completely agree with that. And I, to take it a step further, one of the things that I've kind of been pushing on is making sure that when we're talking about groups, like, it's important to have safe spaces for women. There's a lot of discussion currently with our women in tech groups that I'm part of to say, is this a group that we want to be inclusive to everyone who identifies as a woman? Or, are we going to be excluding some groups? And then there's other conversations in different groups about, how do we actually make sure that we're pushing for advocacy in general across a lot of underrepresented groups in tech. Because I think a lot of times, we'll focus on women, and then the women get all of this executive sponsorship and support, but we're forgetting about trans women or trans men or non-binary people. And it's really important to make sure that we end up being inclusive. It's important to have spaces for individual groups as well, because there's always things that I think that people won't necessarily feel safe talking about outside of that. But in talking about how do we make progress as a whole, it's very important to remember that, you know, if you know, what's the phrase about all boats, raise all boats when the water, I know I'm messing up the phrase, but I think you know what I mean.
Thanks, Tam. And what are the most critical changes in tech that we must make to face the future effectively? Does anybody think?
Wait, sorry, it's all boats rise with the tide. Can you ask the question again?
So it's kind of going off the back of what you were just saying. What are the most critical changes in tech that we need to kind of face to now I can't even get the question out. This is not going well, is it? You've made me repeat this. Your expression, I can't answer the questions, I'm a rubbish chair. What are the most critical changes in tech that we must make to face the future effectively?
Okay, so first off, be kind to yourself, Francesca. Yeah, don't be harsh. And for me, I think it's and actually at the beginning I said, oh, you know, I say I'm non-technical, and actually I think that's part of it. We are all kind of technical. We all use tech. We all at some level in some way. And I was kind of like stood here thinking about the fact of, you know, I played video games since I was tiny, and cheat codes and everything. That is a way of kind of creating an alternative in front of you, you know, at some level. So I think that's part of it, is kind of understanding that tech is so ingrained in our society that everybody is technical and everybody can contribute. Yeah.
I'd like to add something as a hiring manager. You know, I think that one thing that I'm kind of looking at, and as a commitment from my side, is to ensure when we hire, you know, we are a lot more mindful of things that, you know, women may select themselves out, or, you know, looking at job descriptions, for example. Sometimes some of them just like look like a hurdle race that, you know, even if I look at it, I wouldn't apply for that position. So kind of looking at it from that perspective and seeing if it's inclusive. It's really talking about, you know, what you can learn and can contribute and bring to the table, so we can kind of reach to a more diverse applicant set. But I would love to hear from, you know, others. I'm sure there are great ideas.
I think also more and more you'll see that in the tech industry also, being virtual is something that is part of our reality now. Not to say that we had to always be 100% virtual. There's definitely, you know, some you know, some truth to why we sometimes need to meet in person, and being much more effective in conversations, discussions, whiteboarding, whatever it is. But I think just, you know, one is in terms of the changes that are being made, making it so that if you do need to meet virtually, having the tools that you require to be there, so that it's still as effective as if you were working together in person is so key. The other, I think, is also just, even with the pandemic in the past year, you've seen so many companies, even in the retail and the B2C companies, trying to get into the digital transformation as well. So, you know, I'm sure all of you will probably agree that the pandemic has actually driven this digital transformation into a different level now. And so building your skill set, whether that's training or conferences and so forth, and trying to keep abreast of the new technologies that are coming in, whether that's in the containerization or security, you know, building up your skill set and your CVs is something that, you know, definitely try to keep in mind. Take some time to do that, but also take some time just to have fun. So that would be my advice.
Does anybody else have anything to add to that before? I'm conscious of time. I know that we've got our live networking starting in very soon. Lucy's already shared the link with us, but if the final question that I'd love to hear from each one of you would be to hear about an empowering moment, be that recently or earlier on in your career, that was empowering and really kind of inspired you and maybe got you to where you are now. I don't know who wants to go first on that one. It's quite a big end, big end to the panel.
I can go first. I think that so it was when, so I am an engineer now, but I was a program manager for about 4 years in the middle. I did kind of want to try that out, and, I had the opportunity to. And it was my first project of managing something end to end with a lot of cross group folks. And I was having difficulty getting progress. And so I was very persistent. Like, I would kind of have all these meetings. And then I went to my manager at that time. Unfortunately, he's no more, but he's been like my really good mentor. And I told him, like, you know what, I have a feeling that people think that I'm kind of this obnoxious person who keeps asking them about what's happening, and I'm just being very persistent. And then he looked at me and he said, you know what, I look at it differently. I look at you as a warrior. You don't want to give up until you think it's ready. And that just did something for me. I mean, I was so moved, and I kind of, it was a moment that I still remember and hold close to me. And in situations where things get really tough, I look at it and I'm like, okay, you know what? That's how I'm going to look at it. I'm not obnoxious. I'm persistent in a good way. So that's my moment.
I'll go next.
Yeah.
So this is about a very old friend of mine, even from college. She graduated with a chemical engineering degree, and went on to work as in one of the corporate companies, a big company out there now. But halfway in her career, she realized, you know what, this isn't for me. Like, she wanted a different life, a different career. And I really admire her for being bold and accepting of the fact that though you went to college, you did all of this to take on this role, thinking that this is the career you want, then realizing, you know what, I want to take a different career. I thought that was really bold. And I really like the fact that she took that on, and as a warrior, like Janani, she made that decision. It's not necessarily on the engineering or track, but she's still really good in what she's doing now.
Similarly, I think for me, it's the passion of the people around me. I think that's kind of inspired me the most. So, my auntie, when I was quite young, exactly that. So she retrained into something else because she was super passionate about it. Footy, who I work with, started a platform called the Afro Hair Plug because that's something that she's super passionate about. Somebody that I was studying with, Deborah, so she started something called the Women's Association. All of these amazing people that I get to be around and kind of see their excitement and their, I don't know, wanting to make the world better, that kind of makes me kind of go, yeah, okay, let's keep going, let's keep trying. So yeah.
I would say author, actually. Her name is Jen Sincero, and she's written a collection of books just about people, like creative and innovative ways to basically get what you want in life. And she touches on career specifically. And I found what she said about that, especially for women, as women herself. So she was explaining things about the differences in gender and how it might seem daunting and like overcomplicated or tricky to apply for certain jobs because we associate certain roles with certain genders. But she explains how having enough courage in yourself and your skills can actually drive you to end up getting more than you actually expected. And that is not because you're like punching or anything. It's literally because that's what you're capable of and that's what you deserve. And she also touched on the stat that Kerry put inside the chat, in our chat here, that you know, men are more likely to apply for a job if they don't even fit up to 90% of the criteria compared to women. So I think, yeah, just reading all about that and understanding, you know, that I can actually apply for a role that I perhaps might find myself overqualified for, because in essence, I'm not. So yeah, that was very inspiring for me.
Can you put the author's name in the chat? Because I'm really interested to read that.
I definitely will.
Thank you. You know, my answer to this is probably the moment that I decided I should become an engineering manager. So I had kind of fallen into being an engineering manager at my last job, just because I was doing management a little bit, but more on the product side. And because of the team leadership kind of thing, I just ended up having to do that. And I was really struggling with the person who reported to me. Just like they, for example, they said at one point, like, you know, I don't, there's nothing that I can learn from you, which was just, yeah, a very bad relationship, I think. And I was actually ready to quit, even though I was that person's manager, just because there was such strife in the situation. But someone that I had mentored at a previous job had asked me to write her a recommendation for a job at Facebook that she was applying to. And while I was going through this referral questionnaire, because Facebook has a very specific set of questions that you have to answer, and I was sitting there like talking about this person that I mentored for so many years at a previous job, who I'm just so proud of her. And, you know, now she's running all of Facebook's infrastructure. She's great. Anyway, but as I was filling this out, I was realizing that my calling really was to support people in the way that I supported her. And that if I quit this job just because of one person who is giving me a hard time, I would probably be doing other people a disservice, because they would be losing out on my mentorship and like wanting to support them. And then I also realized that I could, you know, let that person go. So it was this moment of just empowerment and realization that, you know, I have made positive impacts on someone's life, and I could do that for more people if I focused in the right way. So yeah, thank you.
Has everybody answered that now? I felt like we'd not all. We felt like there was one of us missing. Well, thank you so much, everybody. If anybody has any questions for our panel, you can type it in the chat box. We will be doing a networking session afterwards. Don't know if anybody has any questions they want to put in the Q&A or in the chat. I know there's lots of chat going on about the book that was mentioned, which I'm currently was in the background Googling, which I got distracted by when you were all talking. Cool. Okay. Well, I think that's about it then from us, folks. I'm sure that there will be plenty of questions in the networking session that Lucy will share the link in the chat shortly. Thank you so much for sharing your morning, your evening, your lunchtime with us, wherever you are. Thank you to our panelists for sharing your insights, and to our fabulous audience once again for participating. We hope you can join us for our next webinar, which will in fact be a workshop hosted by JFrog. For those obviously that do wish to continue further, please do join the networking session. Lucy has now added it to the chat. You can use this, will be split into rooms. We'll probably do like 2 rooms, and we'll continue to cover topics that we've discussed today. There's a final poll, which has just flashed up on my screen, and it's: how would you describe the gender representation among your organization's senior leadership, which I think is quite a good way to round things up. So I'll give that a couple of minutes before we switch. So 26% say there is equal representation of women and men. 70% say that men are overrepresented. And then there is a very small percentage that say that women are overrepresented. I'd be interested to see who that small percentage is. Thank you again so much for joining tonight's panel discussion. We are committed to the pursuit of ensuring diversity and inclusion, building a people-friendly planet, closing the employment gap, and promoting equality. Together we can support one another and embrace our differences to make a real impact throughout the technology world, enabling diversity not only in the workplace but throughout our communities. To find out more about our Women in DevOps initiative, you can visit our website, www.womenindevops.com. If you did sign out at any point or you've looped back in, you can follow our YouTube channel and watch tonight's webinar. And of course, as I mentioned, Lucy has now added the link to the networking session. But for now, stay safe, stay home, and I'm sure we'll see you all soon in an in-person event. I can't believe I'm now a year on and still saying the same thing. Have a lovely evening. I'll see you in the networking.
Thank you.